What's up, y'all? I've been thinking, what can I do to give back to the Shadowverse community or make some sort of educational content for the new people getting into the game or something to help new people get into the game? I really pondered on that question for a while, and then the best thing I could come up with was finding, or creating rather, a guide on how to build and construct decks. For new people getting into the game, I hope this is really useful. For people who have been with the game a while, maybe it's good to just go back and look at the basics sometimes. You know, it's very easy to get mired in the complexity of the game, and so sometimes just taking a step back and saying, okay, what really goes into a good deck might be something that's good for you. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at how to build a really simple deck. Now, again, I want this to be really useful for the new people getting into the game, so I'm going to show you something that you're probably going to be familiar with when you're just starting in Shadowverse. So let's go ahead and get into it here. Click new deck, and then I'm going to choose Runecraft here. Now you can choose any of the 8 classes. Really learn what the classes do. You have a quick bit of info about what the classes are good at here, but I'm going to just choose Runecraft. For your sake, please look at all the classes and see which one that you like the most, and then you can kind of make a deck based off of that. Now, I'm going to go here with the Wizardess of Oz. It's my special leader. And again, I'm not going to use any of the cards that are out in current rotation or in expansion. And what I'm really going to do is I'm just going to go back to the very basics. So again, when you're getting into Shadowverse, this is what you're going to see. Like, you're going to have like all these cards here. These is pretty much what you're going to have outside of the 50 packs you get when you start. So then, how do we put a good deck together? There's a couple things that we have to keep in mind. And there's really three big things that I want you to kind of keep in your head as you're building a deck. Every deck needs to have at least these 3 things. These 3 things. The first thing and the most important thing is your win condition. Every deck needs a condition where it says, okay, if I do this, I win the game. Or if I do this, I have a really high chance of winning the game. Finding and using and creating a win condition is tantamount to winning in the game, right? I don't know how easy or how much more simply I can explain that. So the deck that we're going to have here, if I take a look at all my cards, and again, I've looked at these already, so please look at these in your own time. The win condition I'm going to have right here is this big fat dude here, Flame Destroyer. So Flame Destroyer is cool because he's a 10 cost card, which is really expensive, but he's got really high stats, 7/7. But his ability is subtract 0 from the cost of this card. That seems pretty useless. However, if you spell boost him, so whenever you have him in your hand and you play other spells, the cost of the card goes down. So the idea is to get the cost of this card down really low and then play him, and then play other stuff alongside him so your opponent kind of gets overrun. So, excuse me, that's going to be our win condition. We're going to get out the Flame Destroyer. Now, something you want to keep in mind about your win condition. Your win condition is always 3 of. You always want, so you can have 40 cards in the deck, and you can have at most 3 cards of the same name in the deck. Your win condition, every single card that requires or that is like involved in your win condition gets a 3 of. So then, if this is our win condition to get this big fat dude, this big fat 7/7 guy out, and we want to reduce his cost by spell boosting, we also want to get cards that spell boost him. So that means we need to find spells in the deck. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're just going to add all the spells we can find. Now again, these spells are part of our win condition. So we're going to always include 3 of them. These are your most important cards. You want to have the highest chance of drawing them, right? Drawing from the deck is a bit random. However, if you have 3 copies, the maximum amount of copies of something, you have the highest chance of drawing it from the deck. So you can kind of play the numbers in that game, in that sense. So now we've got all these spells on our deck. Look at this. We've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21 spells in the deck. So the deck can maximum have 40 cards. Half the cards are spells. So then, what do we have next? This is our win condition, right? This is our win condition. The next 2 things that we need to have are what I label under the giant umbrella of support. So what is support? For me, support is 2 things. At first, it is draw, and at second, it is removal. So let's first take a look at draw. In any deck or any game, any card game you play, your ability to have good resources depends on your ability to draw them. So every turn, you're only going to draw 1 card, which is, you know, if you're thinking about it, in Shadowverse, games usually last about 10 turns. So that means if you started a game where you start with 3 cards and you draw 10 cards, you're only going to draw about 13 cards total. and that is only a quarter of your deck, or just over a quarter of your deck. So what you need to do is find a way to get more resources in hand to potentially get A, your win condition, and B, other cards that you can use. So again, if you run out of resources in this game, you lose. So if you run out of cards, then you're basically just like top decking and praying for, for the win condition. So we want to minimize that as much as possible. So card draw. Now, what can we use to draw cards? Now, what's good about the Runecraft class, and this is actually the reason I chose this class, is because the win condition and the support all are rolled up into one. So we actually have these two cards here. The first one, Insight, which is 1 cost card, draw a card. That's card draw for us. This basically lets us cycle through the deck very, very simply. It also helps us spell boost the Flame Destroyer. So you get a 2-in-1 here. So you get you get the card draw, and you get to further your win condition. Let's look at another card here that does the same thing, or does something similar. So for 2 costs here, we have Magic Missile. Deal 1 damage to an enemy and draw a card. That's awesome. So we get to draw a card, we get to spell boost, and we get to hit something small for a little bit of damage. And because it says enemy, that also includes the leader. So you could do 1 damage to the leader, drop their defense by 1, and then later on play Flame Destroyer, and he has to do less work, right? Now, there might be some other followers in the deck that also let us achieve this goal, and the one that I'm going to look at here is Sammy the Wizard's Apprentice. So Sammy Wizard's Apprentice, Fanfare, which means whenever you play her from your hand, both players draw a card. This is also draw. Your opponent gets to do it too, which is kind of crappy. You don't want to give your opponent resources, but hey, if you can at least get something and you get this follower on board, it's not a bad trade. So we're also going to throw Sammy in here. Sammy doesn't spell boost, but she does give us a card. So now we have 9 cards out of the deck that draw. So if we get any of these cards, we can draw another card during a turn, which means we can potentially go through 10 more cards in the deck. And so that means now you're drawing through about half the deck whenever you play this rune class, or you potentially are able to draw through half the deck when you play this rune class. So that is going to be all of our draw for this. So again, you want to have as much draw as possible because you want to be able to cycle through as many cards as you can to find your win condition and to further your game plan. But moving aside from that, drawing does cost things. Keep that in mind. And your opponent is going to be putting out followers on board, and you have to answer those followers. If you don't answer them by destroying them or doing something to where they can't attack you, then you're going to lose the game. So the second piece of support here that's really, really important is going to be removal. So being able to destroy and remove the threats to you losing the game or the threats to your game plan. Again, this is where I really, really like Rune, because they have cards that allow you to spell boost into Flame Destroyer that also are removal as well. The one I'm looking at here, or the one that we looked at before, was Magic Missile. Magic Missile is kind of removal. If there's something on the opponent's board that has 1 defense left, you can use this to ping it off. That's removal. Another one here is going to be Wind Blast, which is like a super big removal, where every time it does 1 damage, but every time you spell boost it, it does 1 more. So if you play 3 spells and then you play Wind Blast will do 4 damage. Not bad. Well, for 2 costs, that's really, really good. And our biggest source of removal in this deck is going to be Fury Embrace. Now, Fury Embrace is way more expensive than Wind Blast is. You can see there, Fury Embrace is 8 cost. Now, this one outright just destroys an enemy follower. That's nice. You don't have to worry about what their defense is. You don't have to worry about, if they're ward or something like that. You can just destroy them outright. Now, again, a really high cost, which kind of makes sense because you just straight destroy them regardless of what their attack or defense are. But it does have the nice spell boost effect. Subtract 0 from the cost of this card, and then for every spell you play, subtract 1 more. So if you play like 3 Insights and then you play Fury Embrace, the cost of this is 5. Not bad, right? That's kind of worth it. So then now you've got Wind Blast and Fury Embrace in this deck as removal. Now there's another source of removal in the game, and I want to take a look at that very quickly in things that have ward. So we take a look at this card here, Angelic Sword Maiden. Cards that have ward mean that they have to be... your opponent has to attack this card before they can attack anything else on the board, which is really, really good. That means they can't just ignore your board. They have to hit this follower, and this follower's got a lot of defense. Look at that, 2/6. That's a thick girl right there. That's a thick maiden. So you can put up wards to make your opponents have to run into this follower, and then they can't. And this follower also deals damage, so it's almost like a shield, like a spiky shield that kind of like absorbs hits. So those are the two kinds of removal that we're going to have. We're going to have the ward, and then we're going to have the outright just destroy a follower or deal damage to a follower until it's gone, right? So that's going to be our removal for the deck. And as you can see, based off of those three things right there, we already have 30 cards. So that means that we only have to slot in 10 more cards that are really going to just support us during the game. Now you'll notice this deck has 21 spells, 9 followers. We're pretty light on the amount of followers we have, which means we're not going to be playing things out on the board very much. Now, some super simple stuff. If you're just starting the game out, just grab a couple of other basic cards. So for example here, we're going to grab something like Fighter, 2/2, 2 attack, 2 defense for 2 cost. And then we're going to grab something else. Let's see here. We're going to grab something a little bit bigger in Goliath. There we go. He's a big 4 cost, but 3/4 is not bad. And then we're also going to grab the Mercenary Drifter. Now the decks have to have 40 cards, and we have 39 cards in the deck. So that means we can add 1 more card. And, it's really tough to choose. I've got this really fancy one here called Demon Flame Mage. Let's take a look here. If I evolve it, it deals 1 damage to all the enemy followers. I have Lightning Shooter, whose fanfare deal 1 damage to an enemy follower. Kind of like a spell, or the Wind Blast here. That's kind of expensive, though, for 5. To be honest, I might go with something a little bit cheaper. And so I'm going to take a look at this card here called Well of Destiny, which is an amulet. It's not a spell, but it's an amulet. And at the start of your turn, give +1/+1 to a random allied follower, which is kind of nice. It buffs up your monsters a little bit. And imagine if we hit Well of Destiny on Angelic Sword Maiden, then this becomes a 3/7. That's not bad. So you can potentially heal up your Angelic Sword Maiden and also buff her attack as well, so that she can deal more damage back to the followers that she's hitting, or the followers that are running into her. And so that's really going to be it. I mean, here's the deck we've built so far. It's pretty simple. Again, our win condition, the 3 things we need for the deck. Again, first, the win condition is going to be our Flame Destroyer. We put this big boy right here. And to do that, to get him out earlier than turn 10, which is really long, we're gonna spell boost them a lot. So we got all these spells in the deck to do that. Over half the deck is spells. So we got things like Insights, we got Magic Missile, Wind Blast, Summon Snow, which just summons a snowman, Conjure 2, which summons 2 golems. So these actually summon followers, which is not bad. And they also spell boost your Flame Destroyer, your Fury Embrace, your Wind Blast, things like that. And then the second piece we're going to have, again, the support in the removal. Wind Blast again, Fury Embrace. We've got Magic Missile. Where's Magic Missile at? There it is, right there, right in my face. In addition, we're also going to have some card draw, Insight, again, Magic Missile. And where's Sammy? Sammy, Wizard's Apprentice here. So again, when you're building your decks, really focus on and think about these sorts of things. Really make sure that the decks you have those 3 pieces. Again, your win condition, and then everything to support that win condition. And again, ours is Flame Destroyer, and then all the spells. Make sure you have some draw, Insight, Magic Missile, Sammy. And also make sure that you have some removal in things like Wind Blast, Fury Embrace, and what was our last one? Magic Missile, that's right, yeah. What's really good is if you can find cards that do 2 or more of those things, that means that card's really good. You've got a lot of resource out of that card. It's very flexible. Helps you basically achieve more than one thing at a time. Again, that's going to be the end of this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be doing a couple of other follow-up videos like this. And yeah, if there's some topic that you'd like me to cover or really focus on about Shadowverse, please let me know as well. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. I also stream on Twitch, so if you like watching Shadowverse, I'll be there playing it as well. And yeah, that'll be it. I'll see you next time. Take care.